that. Hello and welcome back to the Fifth Trooper podcast, where we talk Legion, Star Wars Legion. My name is Jay Shalansky, and I am joined by Evan Bulris.
Hey, how's it going?
How's things, man?
Excellent. Now that I got a tank on the horizon.
Oh my god, I know I know everybody wanted to get the kind of the breakdown and the previews of the other troops there that are coming out next week. The
Like
the
generic
commanders and
commanders.
the unit
Yeah.
leaders. Yeah, but this was just as good in my
Oh
eyes.
yeah, I mean we've all been kind of expecting the occupier, but we weren't really sure what the rebels are getting. I guess it fits that they get a just a speeder with guns on it.
Yeah, it's funny. So to yesterday's episode of Notorious Scoundrels, I was their guest, and we talked a lot about this at length. But it just seems like it almost seems like I made a joke on their podcast, like, oh, the developers and all the people that work at Fantasy Flight are clearly Empire fans as well, because they just keep putting out these ridiculous units for the Empire, and then the Rebels get some weird, like, as Orchimedes, or Kyle as he's going by now, and Notorious, he called it just basically like a pickup truck with a grenade launcher guy on the back.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because Empire has, if you want to think about like the least interesting spacecraft, right? They've got like TIE fighters and
Yeah.
dive bombers, whereas rebels have all the cool stuff, right? X wings, A wings, Y wings. So you can't be great everywhere, I guess. Gotta have something to fall back on. So the Empire gets cooler land vehicles.
Yeah, that's definitely it, and I think it's just unfortunate because as cool as I think that speeder is, the land speeder, once you look at we looked at some of the I read some of the fuzzy text, because apparently I'm good at that, and it just doesn't come out as strong as the tank, nor should it, right? Because you're kind of a rabble,
Well, yeah. So like
force
it's what's the speed on it?
too.
2? Okay, that's pretty good. So it has transport, which is a rule that was released in the newer FAQ a while ago, but we're actually seeing it in a vehicle. For one model, not one unit, but just like one dude.
Yeah, it
So
says one model with a small base.
So you could put, Luke's problem's always getting to the fight.
Yep.
So you just drive Luke up and dump him off. I mean,
Yeah, because the
the tank's
interesting
real slow.
yeah, well, and the interesting thing about that transport wording is it says if you suffer one or more wounds, you allocate one wound to each mini or unit. I forget
Yeah,
which
you sure
one it
do.
was. So
Because they're both open top. Yeah.
right, but okay, so here's what it says. After defending, if you suffer one or more wounds, each unit you are transporting suffers one wound. So let's say you suffered 5 wounds, Luke's only getting 1.
Correct. Yeah.
So part of that, not only getting you're transporting Luke at maybe a little bit faster of a clip, but you're also giving him protection on the way.
Yeah. No, I think it's because it has, they both have armor, but the speeder has armor 2, which is a kind of got me confused
Correct.
when I was reading it. Yeah. It's, where it
Yeah, they
ignores.
did that backwards.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like, you think armor nothing, no number would just be like, I don't know, the way they have it. So armor 2 means they only block 2 hits, but they also have speeder, so it gives them cover
Yep.
1. So they technically, if you're just shooting at them open, they got 3 hits they don't care about
Yep.
before they start getting hit. I mean, for 75 points or whatever it is, 77 points,
Yeah, 75. Yep.
it's like,
It's not bad.
no, I actually think running like a couple of them as good flankers, like I think
Yeah.
it almost replaces the T-47.
Oh, I think it does for sure. Yeah, I mean, the interesting part, the one pilot that we can read, he's from Rebels. I forgot his name. They told me last night. It's not someone I personally knew,
Yeah.
but it said while performing a move, increase or decrease your movement speed by 1. So that's weird. So basically, what it sounds like, for 5 points, you put this guy in there, and for one of your moves, you can go 3.
Yeah, also, because you have compulsory, right? You have to move.
Yep.
He can change that too, right? Because it's a
Yeah,
move
yeah, yeah,
action you
yeah,
have to do.
right,
So
he
I think that's the uh the real value of him is like I only want to go one here, or I really need to go three here because you can go like three, two, two, and just be gone, right? Like nothing's catching you.
yep. Yeah, and it's interesting, I'd like to see what the other pilot says because it looks like Outer Rim something, but basically, because both of them say repulsor vehicles only, so they can be used in the airspeeder as well. So
Okay.
depending on what that other pilot may give them, maybe the airspeeder becomes more relevant. I don't know.
Now I gotta find. I don't know if it's come up yet, but I wonder if a unit holding an objective can get into a transport. I'm not sure about
Yeah.
that.
I don't know about that either. The other question around transport too is that we brought up yesterday on the podcast on Notorious Scoundrels was can a unit shoot while they're being transported? That's the other question. So like the scenario was, can you pop Han in this, roll him up against something, and just start just start shooting?
So in other miniature games that have open top vehicles, you can. But they usually have
Okay.
but when open top usually comes with its own problems, like it, Legion doesn't really differentiate between like artillery grenades and normal shots. They just kind of lump it into an attack. So
Yep.
you don't have to worry about like, well, if people have grenades, it's real bad for your open top transport. But on the flip side, closed vehicles, right? They generally can't get hit, but they can't shoot. So I'm not sure. That's a good question. Hopefully, when they come out, they'll come with that little rule insert that sometimes clarifies what's going on.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to because they're just missing the whole transport section, right? And so, I'm sure they're gonna need a few paragraphs on that just to kinda give us a clue, as to where that's gonna, take place or how that's gonna work. I will say this though, something that really, really excites me about this is we've been talking about the future and how they're gonna do clones and droids. Droid transports. It's the one thing I want. Like, I wanna drive a droid transporter across the battlefield and just be dropping units like it's nobody's business. I think that'll be
I
amazing.
think you're gonna see it. You gotta. So that's where I believe they want to differentiate between closed top, open top, because droids are gonna be
Yes.
closed, right?
Yeah, I would think so, and then, they have the number too, so it's transport X, so it's, transport 1.
Yeah.
So maybe there's gonna be a transport 4, and then, if it's closed, I would assume, so the question is with these 2, since they're open, do you like okay, so the tank has all that room in the back where the kyber crystal, boxes are.
Oh, is that up there?
So you take
That's
those
cool.
off, right, and then does the unit that you're transporting with that one, do they just all sit on the back? Is that how that works? Or you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or do you set them aside off the battlefield? That's the
Because I was
interesting
just gonna
part.
put them in the back of the tank myself when playing. I don't know what the
Yeah.
official rule is, but if I don't have the I thought they were just I didn't realize they're kyber clips. I thought they were just like light terrain you could drop around. So you move
Yeah, I don't know about that either, but yeah, maybe.
because you'd move your tank forward, then you could throw out these little like light barriers to get you guys so you can advance in like an open space.
Yeah, I wonder if that's one of the upgrades, like, because it doesn't have any wording on the actual card for that, but maybe there's an upgrade for that that's, you create your own terrain. That'd be crazy too.
Right? Just to get to the fight. Because as soon as I saw that, I'm like, man, you put Imperial Royal Guard in there, so you could just dump them out at full health right in front of a bunch of guys. You could get Snow Troopers in there. Vader could get a move. Uh, Empire, like the Palpatine, could get, uh, just get to the front line if you want him to.
I mean, the other thing is it doesn't say small base mini. So, like I brought up on the podcast yesterday, you could put an e-web on it.
That's really funny. Actually, that's a good idea, right? Like, eWeb's biggest problem is they're real clunky, and uh, that's really funny. Yeah, eWeb's actually a really good idea. Like, just really start going crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. A while ago when the e-webs and the laser cannons first came out. I was really down
Yeah.
on them, and I've brought this up again, but man, I am like right now I'm in love with them. I think they are the E-webs, not so much laser cannons, but the E-webs are such a great tool, and I think it's because I have them with Palpatine, so I think that really helps,
Yeah.
what I'm doing. But God, I just love them so much. They are so good.
I played them for one in our my past TTS game, and it was the first time I used them, so I didn't really. I had the basic idea of what I wanted to do with them. And my first one just died. Like he just took all. He got shot 2 hits, took 2 hits, got shot again 2 hits, and died. And I'm like, oh, these things are garbage, right? And then my second one started.
Yeah,
You know, I did
yeah.
the uh, standby move standby, and I got a shot, and it just was a bad roll. Like not much you can do about that. Um, but I did like them. I thought they were after I used them, they're really great. Like zone control. The other guy had to hide all of his guys behind buildings, so he couldn't get like I couldn't get a shot on him. I think they're like yeah, I'm growing
Yep.
on them too. I used to not think stationary weapons were have any chance in this game, but I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is you look at them. You gotta look at them from almost like, they're kind of like a cannon fodder unit, and so for 55 points, especially if you use like okay, and here's a little insight. So I just did a TTS stream on our YouTube channel, and you can check it out. Go check out our YouTube channel. And I was just testing out my list for LVO against one of our listeners, Sploosh, if you're out there, yo. And so we had a nice game, and I was like monkeying and doing some funky stuff and just trying to figure stuff out. But one of my favorite kind of combos that I have in my arsenal now is if we do like a key positions or a oh gosh, sorry, that the other one just dropped out of my head. It always does. What's
Intercept the transmissions.
intercept the transmission? Yeah, intercept the transmission key or key positions. What I like to do is try to get rapid reinforcements as well. And so what happens is I put the E-webs
Oh,
aside for rapid
we got cut
reinforcements.
out.
I drop entire Legion with Palpatine so that I get all my activations open. So then I know when to put that I all that's left in my stack, or roughly what's left in my stack, is the E-webs. And then I can use them to basically tie down uh these these locations, these objectives. And so like I'll drop like so okay, intercept the transmissions, you got
Yeah,
the one in the middle, the two on the sides, right? So what I'll do is I'll pull an E-web off the stack, and I'll just drop it next to one of the objectives, because no one's moved within two of it yet because of the way the board's set up, and the fact that it's basically turn one or turn two for me. And so or activation one or activation two. And so I just drop the E-webs next to the objective, and now they have to deal with that.
no, I think that's good because you can't. They're easy to kill, but you can't ignore them, right? Because if you because they surge to crits, like that's pretty mean. So the red die is only one miss for them, and then anything they get just gets better. And then if you want to put a battery on them, which I don't really care for on the E-webs, on the 1.4 cannons, I believe you want the suppression battery. Uh, where the impact maybe when all the maybe when the tank meta is real, you'll want the extra impact. But I think just 55 points just naked, you get two of them for 100 points. That's pretty good. 110 points.
Yeah, well, and I think Palpatine makes them better because what you do is you're not like you can move, and let's say instead of standby, you can move and aim, and then if you got him in a good position, you can use Palpatine to pull the
Yeah, that's
strings
good.
and have him shoot. And so now you're giving yourself all these other options. Now, if you're running Royal Guard too, which you absolutely, if you're running Palpatine, you should be running Royal Guard. Like if you're not doing that, you're crazy. And so you run Royal Guard, and now if they're within one, they can Guardian two. So now you're saving your E-webs and building up that
Gotcha.
that power. And so Yeah, it's just there's a lot of good combos with the E-webs with Pelp and the guards that I've really been enjoying lately, and so it's really kind of changed my perspective on the E-webs, and I think just overall for everybody who listens to us, like, there's gonna be things where you, the listener, or myself, or Evan, or maybe even Notorious Scoundrels, you may not see all the kind of combinations that are possible with these units until all the units are released, right? So like for instance with the airspeeder, I don't know, with this tank and stuff coming out, the airspeeder for the rebels may get really strong now. We don't know what that other pilot is that comes with the land speeder, so maybe that enhances the
Yeah, there's a
airspeeder.
couple, so usually when they have cards face down in the list, like when they're doing the fan of cards, it's something that's already out. But it's possibly, maybe it's not, maybe it's new comms upgrades that could make like the speeder better. Maybe it's anything, it could be another hard point, maybe. I don't know. I have hope that, as much as everyone thinks, well, it is not even thinks, like, knows that the airspeeder is probably the worst unit arguably in the game currently. I don't think it's going to stay that way forever. Give it an expansion or two, and we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, I would say I think right now as it
Yeah,
stands, it's the worst unit, but that could change depending on
yeah,
what happens, right, from here on out. And it just seems like God, every time they come out with something, like, I think we knew the tank was coming eventually. I did not expect it this fast. And so just the fact that the occupier is out, I mean, I was giddy yesterday about this. I'm like, "Oh my god, we got a tank." Like, I was so
yeah. I'm
happy.
excited. I was really happy too, because I really wanted. I get it. It's a trooper game. I get it, but I like vehicles in Star Wars, so I just want to see some more of them. But now there's actually like a debate for your heavy spot in Imperial. Like, do I want to go to ADST and really? Because if someone brings a tank and you've got an ATST, that tank's in trouble, right?
Oh, agree 100%. Yep.
That tank's in real trouble. But on the flip side, the tank's probably better off against infantry.
Yep.
So now that we actually get this like rock paper scissors like bluffing game, so do I take the ATSD and hope I run against some tank guys? Am I going to be one of those guys who I bring like a couple list variants and I go to the event and I look around and see what people are playing and then build my list accordingly? I am not one of those guys, but you can be, right? You can have a tank and an ATSD.
Yeah.
They're roughly the same points.
I will
I
say
like just
go ahead, sorry.
I would say I just like to bring one, like, take all comers lists.
Yep.
But like, it becomes a hard choice, right? Because taking both is insane. It's like 200 points. It's like 400 points of just vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess to that point with what you were saying about, having multiple lists, I never planned on being that guy, but I'll tell you something that scared me recently. I saw some of the LVO terrain, like LJ's been talk polite, LJ. He's
Yeah.
been spoiling some of the terrain or previewing, I guess is a better word, previewing the terrain for LVO. And one of them was an X-wing like hangar bay, basically.
Okay. Yeah,
And
with
I'm
all the
like,
yep.
what's that?
Yeah, no, I'm
What
agreeing with you. Yeah, yeah. I saw it,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so you saw it. So I was looking at that, and so right now my list currently has 2 sniper units. I'm like, "What am I gonna do with snipers on this?" Like, and I'm like, "Okay, I need to come up with a second list in case I get there and I'm looking around at the terrain and I'm just like, this is not sniper friendly. Like, this is gonna be more, beat 'em up units."
Yeah.
So right now I'm looking at maybe swapping out my 2 snipers for Imperial for the Royal Guard, another Royal Guard unit.
No, sure. I
Because
mean, you
it's
can. Like,
yeah,
I actually made me happy when I saw that like, it's not just sniper heaven, right? Because
yes,
if you take the long march, you don't feel like you're screwed. You can just run through all those X-wings.
yeah,
But that's also more cover than the 25%, right?
yeah,
So it's just which isn't bad, like, that's the minimum, right? They say it's 25%. Um, so we'll see. I mean, I saw it and I thought it looked cool. I think it'd be cool to have like an ATSD marching
yep.
down that line, just
Oh,
like
I
it
I
got into the
like
hangar bay.
yeah, I love theme don't get me wrong, I love themed, terrain. I'm not against this at all, but it just made me. I mean, and to be quite honest, before I saw the terrain, I was really starting to question my snipers. Like, I
Okay.
get that they can be an auto wound, right? I get
Yeah.
that. Okay, so before anybody hollers at us about that, no, I understand what they do. But, like, and Evan, you put it this way pretty well. So, normal games, if you can make it, not dependent on time, you get 6 rounds.
Hmm.
So, you're basically gonna get 6 shots with your snipers. Most of the time, your opponent is focusing on your snipers, so that takes away 1 or 2 of their, activations of snipers, or you're focusing on theirs. So, like, the max you're doing is 6 wounds,
Yep.
but I found that most of the games anymore don't go to 6 rounds, that you maybe get 4, maybe 5 in, and so you're getting maybe 3 to 4 wounds, maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree. After the last couple games I've had with mine, I put them in a good spot. They've gotten to take shots every turn, but sometimes they just roll two blanks into two blanks, and you're like, okay. You put even with rerolls, right? You throw a Veer's extra reroll on them. You're like, all right, well,
Well, and it's like, okay, so there, you got, let's say you have, so I'll use my problem here as an example. I have 2 sniper units. And so that's 2 wounds with white dice. And they're definitely gonna, I mean, yes, you could say that really the only thing that's gonna go after them is other sniper units, sure, but that's almost a guaranteed kill, right, with these sniper units, because white dice, number 1, plus the
yeah,
pierce, like, it just they don't last very long. So my dilemma that I've had lately, and the thing I've been asking myself is, okay, are they worth enough because they suppress and they're kinda holding back units, or would it make more sense for me to put in some Rock'em Sock'em Robot guards, where now I have 6 wounds with red dice, plus Guardian, plus all this other stuff, and I toss them in instead, and now I it's so for me, that f because Palpatine is so much control, like, if I was gonna reference, like, Magic, he he's a
yeah,
control deck. Right? Like, he's that blue, white, I think it was blue, white, and, black control deck from a few years ago when, Return to Ravnica was big. Um, and so he my question is the snipers control enough, or are they aggro? So that's what I've been kind of going back and forth about, where I feel like the guards help with that control because 'cause they're peeling wounds off of other units, plus they're controlling parts of the board, because people see those royal guards and they're like, "Oh, crap. I gotta deal with these
yeah.
guys now."
No,
You
I'm
know what
way
I
more
mean?
scared of Royal Guards than I am snipers at this point. So my game plan used to always be take maximum firepower to wipe out a sniper unit, have my other sniper units shoot at sniper units, and then control like I remove their snipers and I control the sniper game. Right, I'm the only one who can do it. But man, it's
Yes.
even when you do that, it gets real disappointing when they don't do a whole lot for you. Like, yeah, they shoot, but like that one damage sometimes just doesn't matter a whole lot. Or it's I don't know. I agree with you though. Like I used to think they were the be all end all, and now I'm kind of weighing if I'm even going to take them anymore.
Yeah, same, and then if you run up against, like, a orbital bombardment, or coordinated bombardment, it's just like, "Oh, now we got." Leia just took out 2 of my snipers because of that new deployment rule where you can't deploy on different, levels of
Yeah,
terrain. If there isn't good terrain to hide your snipers behind, and to, like, hide the 1 unit and just leave your leader out, they're gone. Like, that her 1 pip card
yep.
erases them.
No, I mean that's what I use Veers for. That's really until now that the new
Yeah.
generics are going to be out this month, I'll probably be using the generic guy. But no, I agree. Like it feels bad on your end to just have him removed like that, and then like you don't even know. Like after I've mine survived the whole game, the last two games, and I don't really feel like they've done a whole lot for me. So yeah, I'm with you. I might be swapping them out just to see.
Yeah, I just, I'm about a month out from LVO, a little less than a month out from LVO. and I have the snipers, in there for now. I part of me is considering, taking them out and putting in the guards, but I may just bring both and then just see how the terrain looks and then make a
No,
decision from there.
I mean, we'll get some games in, right? Like, I haven't played. I love not Vassal. Jesus, X-wing. TTS as a platform to play
Yes.
Legion on, but I also hate it. I'm starting to get like a 50-50 on this because the tables that you play on there are nowhere near the tables I actually ever get to play this game on for realsies.
Yes.
And no game on Vassal will matter as much as the game I'm playing on a real table, considering it's all uh, like hyper. That's you play on real tables to get into the hype, like the maximum firepower events and the worlds, and
Yep.
they might have great terrain there, but the lists you build for TTS are different than the lists you build for like realsies, and
Yep.
I'm it gets kind of frustrating. Granted, I am not the best player. I will be the first to admit that. I make a lot of mistakes. But still, I always feel like I have a closer game when I'm on the table. So I like it for a good testing ground. But from
Yep.
now on, you and I, we should just like try to get some real table games in.
Yeah, agreed. And that's, I got actually I got a couple games next week with some of our listeners, which is
Yeah, there you
pretty
go.
cool. They're gonna be in town, so I'm gonna play them. And yeah, I agree. I have to get more in and just keep. I mean, really, that's I think it was Freeman or LJ Freeman. I think I might have brought this up last cast too, but that he basically says you just gotta keep playing because you gotta build that muscle memory. And so
Yep,
like changing your list up isn't really a great idea. It's just you
not at
just
all.
keep playing your list until you know your list by heart and you know what it can and can't do.
The
And
problem is you get in those zones though, right? So it's like because I don't get to play Legion as much, you really need like in X-wing. You say you really got to play this list like 10 times to really feel if it's you or the list, right?
yeah,
Or you just had a bad day. But with Legion, like I'll play once and lose and be like, "Wow, this thing's garbage." And it could have just been I played
right.
poorly or I had bad dice. But you really got to stick with it a few rounds. Like I played a lot more with the five troopers, two ATSTs, and Veers, and I really kind of wanted to just to feel it out, and it just lacked a kick. Like that was after every game that's what I felt. So I'm like, okay, time to actually change.
Yeah, and I'll say so with my list that I'm bringing to LVO, I think I've lost 2 games with it and I've won 9 at this point now with
Okay,
this list.
that's good. That's pretty
And
good.
s and I feel like I'm in every game.
Yeah,
Like, even the 2 I lost to 2 very good players, I still felt like,
you had a
"Oh,"
chance.
like, it coulda gone yeah, it coulda gone
Yeah,
either way in those moments, and I felt like I've been up against almost everything, except for really Chewie. I've played against Wookiees, I haven't played against Chewie, but I've been up I'm trying to think, most of the rebel stuff I've seen with this list besides air speeders, but that's not gonna be a problem at LVO.
yeah.
Uh, and, so I feel pretty confident with the list. It's going good, and I know what it can and can't do, and for instance, like if you watch our live stream that I did the other day with Sploosh, I believe that was Sunday. I tried some crazy stuff out with the list, particularly with the Royal Guard, um, and I just wanted to see if they could survive without, because it's kind of like one of those like the Raptors testing the fences for weakness. And so I was like, okay, like the guards are good when they're near Pelp and they're getting their activation for free and with Entourage and they're getting all this stuff. What if I put them it was the split battlefield and I'm like, what if I put them on the opposite side just by themselves? What can they do?
Yeah, yeah.
And the answer is they were scary still. Like, still had to contend with them, and they didn't do as good as they could have, but they still were a beast to deal with.
It's funny you should say that because like even when they shoot, it's two black dice apiece. That's a lot,
Yeah,
man. Like, that's why I was kind of hoping with the
yeah,
tank. I would throw like a full scout trooper unit in there, maybe with the mine layer, and move the tank up, and then have other threats besides the tank. And when the tank got close enough to drop out
Yep.
those scouts, and they start just shooting, all those dice everywhere, that might be a pretty valid tactic.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Royal Guard, right? I'm putting it down on the books right now, and you guys can listen to yesterday's Notorious Scoundrels because I put up a fight for them too. And the fight yesterday on Scoundrels was that I put up was 2 Royal Guard units versus Vader. Not fighting Vader, but taking it
Oh,
in
two
in
guard
your
units.
list.
Yeah.
And my argument, yeah, 2 guard units instead of Vader, right? And so what I'm saying is I get Vader has all this special stuff with command cards. Okay, no denying that. No arguing that. But from a unit to unit standpoint, I still think there is much of a board changer as Vader is. And that's my opinion, and I may be wrong. Like I get Vader has Pierce and all this other junk, but man, they are a threat basically the whole game. I was going to say from range 2 in, but from the whole game, they're a threat. You need to plan around them because they are going to come mess you
I
up.
twice by my past two TTS games I've lost to. Well, the first one and the third one I've lost to uh, Imperial Guard. Just like one guy getting through. Like I just can't like when they get close to tie
Yeah,
up something, because tying up a unit is more valuable than it seems. Uh, like it's good. Like I think they're good. Yeah, I agree with you because there's more health points worth of damage you have to chew through. They have Guardian too, so if you've got something else that needs to get up to the front, they can protect it. They can protect each other if you feel like it. If you want to spread that damage around, which is a real good tactic. And then if they feel like
right.
shooting, it's like 18 black dice, so it's fine.
Yeah, they're so good. I
You
love
give them
them.
tenacity, that's a free red dice. Like
Yep.
sure,
Yep, in the melee, yeah, I do that. Yeah, so anyway, so yeah, my thought is, maybe adding them back in, and I know we kind of got on a tangent here, but I think this is a good conversation. Um, yeah, so I think they're good. The E-webs, I think and this goes back to there's and this is similar, and I know a lot of people complain when we talk about Keyforge, but you know what? This is my podcast. I'm going to say whatever I want. So when you play Keyforge, there's kind of like these hidden combos in the game, that you may
hmm
not see at first, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Holy crap, that's insane! I didn't see that the first 5 times I played this deck." And that's kind of how this Palpatine list is working for me right now. I feel like every time I play it, I'm like, "Oh man, I didn't think of that." Like
yeah,
that's another really insane combo that I can do with this deck. Or, I can do X with this list. And it's just every time I play it, there's something new that I'm like, "Oh man, I love this list." So it's really interesting that I've finally found it's been a while, like, for anybody who's been listening to the podcast for a while, like, I've been struggling this from, like, episode 3, right? Is, like, finding a list that feels right to me and that I just understand and, like, it excites me, and this Palpatine list is that list right now.
cool. Hey man, that's good.
Y Yeah.
I'm still in flux. I haven't found a good imp list I've liked in a while. I mean, like I just love the ATSD, so I'm always gonna play it. But the tank's coming out, so that's good. And I wanted to do Death Troopers with Krennic, so maybe I'll switch to that. But I'd really like to do generic stuff, so I'll be finally happy and settled to figure something out when everything's finally out. I'm almost getting I like the new units, but I'm starting to get uh like frustrated with all the new stuff they keep releasing. I'm like, just either release a new thing or just let me know that this is all I'm getting. Like, don't put my heartstrings. I just want to have all my options out so I can start really looking at everything. But hey, Death Troopers, Krennic, and a tank's
Yeah.
coming, so that's positive.
Well, so gosh, it's just interesting because, they got us all hyped for clones and droids, and yet I thought that they were gonna start pulling back on the on these lists, to prep for that,
Yeah.
but they haven't pulled back at all. Like, they are
No.
going strong into, so I think we're looking at, so these would, I'm guessing, we're gonna come out similar time, but I think that's gonna be the way the release schedule would be working, is those are gonna come out in March, April. Probably April, May,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah,
are
that's
when
probably
those
about
are gonna
right,
come
yeah.
out. Because I think Jin is supposed to be for February, Krennic and Death Troopers are supposed to be for March, so then April, May, and then that would put us, I would guess they'll probably have a couple more releases. My guess is that roughly around Gen Con is when the Clone Troopers, droids are gonna come out, because Fantasy Flight loves Gen Con and loves to announce things
Oh,
there.
yeah, no, that'll be the actual announcement. I mean, they announced like anything that's announced now is gonna come out. Like the worst offender was those guns, right? They announced like the E-Web and the 1.4 cannon like
Yes.
6 months before it came out. Then like they got like Boba Fett got released before, and then it all got goofy. So hopefully they got it figured out now, and I'll be excited to get a bunch of new units to play with this month. For both sides, right? Aren't both coming out this month?
Yeah, yeah, they're both coming out.
Thank God. So I really hope they start sticking to that and just releasing both sides at the same time, instead of that 1 month gets Imperial, 1 month gets Rebels. So both, if you're like me, who's kind of a single faction player, I don't feel left in the dust here. That I'm not getting like the new cool toy. So cool. I'm pumped for the 26.
Yeah. Yeah, and, the interesting thing I think is gonna be, if I was them, and this is me just guessing, is that I would put out another core set. And it
Oh
would be
yeah,
the 2 fac yeah, it would be the 2 factions. I'd do it similarly, where it'd be, so what they put out? They put out the core set plus the ATST and the land speed and the air speeder, I
yeah,
think, were all the ones that kinda came out at the same time. I would do the same thing with this, so that people can build an 800-point army with the 2 new armies, and be somewhat competitive in the landscape.
yeah. No, I agree with you there.
Okay, so next thing I think we'd like to talk, and we haven't done this in a long time, but I'd like to talk about we're doing it wrong. So this is a section of the cast where we usually talk about rules that either we got wrong, or rules that popped up that maybe we weren't aware of. So two of the ones that I'd like to talk about today are both in the attack kind of phase of the game. So the first one that actually came up on, the live stream that I had the other night was, cover, and so what had happened was, we had a tie based on line of sight to the minis for cover. So there was a tie for light cover and a tie for heavy cover. So basically, I couldn't see 1 unit, 2 units were in heavy, and 2 were in light. And what it basically comes down to in the rule book is that if there's a tie, it goes to the heavier option. So if there's a tie for light cover and no cover, it would go to light. If there's a tie for light and heavy cover, it goes to heavy. I have literally never run into that situation before. This was the first time that that has ever happened to me, and I had no idea. And and luckily, Sploosh, who was playing against, he had listened to Notorious Scoundrels, one of their streams, one of their live streams for, I think it was Team League or Invader League, and it came up during one of the streams, and so they had talked about it. I think Endless and Orchimedes had talked about it, and covered that, and so luckily he knew that, but it was just such an odd situation that I had never been in before, and it wasn't something that I honestly ever thought about.
Oh, I mean, I was watching the stream when that happened, and I wasn't really thinking too much about it. And then when they explained, I'm like, oh, I guess that makes sense for the 50-50. I never thought about the cover thing though. Like, right, that was the first time I've ever seen that myself.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and, there's all these little kind of bullets, right, inside the rules reference that, even those of us that play all the time, there's still things that just don't come up that you run into, and so I thought that was a good one that I would
No,
make
sure,
everybody
yeah.
aware of on the cast. The other one, and this is something I always kind of always second guess and maybe get a little confused with is the kind of the attack steps and how, like, the order of that. And so, the part is really that always kind of tricks my brain a little bit is the rolling attack die step. So you roll the dice, you resolve any rerolls like aim or anything like that.
Okay.
Okay. Then here's where it gets I was gonna say dodgy,
Got him.
so pun. There you go. Here's where it gets dodgy is when you're converting, so you convert surges to what is indicated on your card, then or you change them to blank if there's no indication. And I think this part's important because I think we skip this sometimes. So physically changing them to what's indicated on the card, because then comes the apply dodge and cover step. So, like, sometimes I know I ran into this the other day. It was like, wait, that's a surge. I don't remember where the dodge cover kind of action takes place in this list. And it takes place after you
Okay,
convert
gotcha.
surges.
Yep.
Okay. And then, then you would dodge or cover to cancel the hits. And then you go, and then you can and then after that is the attacker can resolve any card abilities that modify the dice. Then the defender can resolve any card abilities that modify the attack dice. So that's kind of
No, sure. I
the
mean,
way that
when we first
moves.
started playing, like, we didn't have anyone to teach us, so we just kind of learned as we went, and we goofed up some of that ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and not, another thing I want to say it was during your stream. Another thing I think is a good habit to get into is if there's multiple hits with a unit that has Pierce, always roll the dice. Just always roll
Oh
them.
yeah, I just goofed up. So, uh,
No, no, and I wasn't picking on you specifically. I'm just
no,
that's
it's
just
fine.
something
It's good
that we should just.
to talk about. So, um, I was he had Pierce 2, and he did 3 hits. And so, for whatever reason in my mind, instead of what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to roll 3 dice, and then you take away the 2 pierce hits. And then, so if I rolled 3 hits, I mean, 3 evades to his 3 hits with 2 pierce, uh, 2 would get auto pierced, so I'd take 2 damage. That makes sense? Because 3, then 1, then 2. Pierce is a little weird because you do roll the dice. In my mind, for whatever reason, I just thought I ignored 2 dice rolls. So I just took them out and just rolled 1 because I'm like, well, they're going to be damaged anyway. Uh, it's because it could be even worse for me. It could be I only roll like 1 shield, so I just take full 3, nothing to do for it. And I just wasn't even thinking. Like, I lost 3 guys anyway. Uh, and but no, that's important. Like, never just assume a Pierce is like a die roll you don't need to roll. You always roll for it. And it may seem like you might be listening to this and going like, well, duh. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Uh, but Pierce doesn't come up a whole lot. And a lot of times with, like, the problem is you get very used to snipers. You say 1 Pierce damage and you just pick up a guy. Whereas in reality, you're supposed to roll the die. If it You're gonna lose him anyway, but if it comes up as a shield or blank, then you take him off, right? So it's or even with Pierce 2 and he only does 2 hits, so just losing 2 guys. I think what happens is you just get in the habit of just like, okay, 2 guys are dead and you pick them up, but you really should roll anyway still, just to get the correct, like, rhythm of how things are supposed to go, and then you won't make those mistakes, right?
Yeah, and I think Pierce gets tricky in that scenario, and it also gets tricky with Impervious with Boba.
Yeah. Yep.
And just understanding. And also, here's the other thing with Pierce. So Pierce is an interesting thing. So the way Pierce reads, it says while attacking, cancel up to 1 shield result. Okay,
Hmm.
1 block. Now, if I Guardian or if I use a Steam Leader, I get to choose which defense die I'm going to pierce. So, like, let's say, for instance, you're shooting my Palpatine, with sniper rifle, okay?
Yep.
You get the let's say you get 2 hits, and I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna guardian one of those hits." You can choose to pierce the guardian roll and or Palpatine's roll. So now you get to choose either one. So whatever shield pops up, you get to pierce that. So
Okay,
it's just
gotcha.
something to think about with Pierce. And also Boba gets confusing for people too, because let's say let's say you have Pierce 2 with Boba, and let's say there's 4 wounds, so you're actually rolling 6 dice, right?
Yep.
The way Pierce works is I can pierce shields. Let's say you get a couple blanks. Well, now this is where it starts getting confusing, right? Like if I get 4 hits through, and then I'm gonna, and you roll, let's say you roll 6 dice with four shields, 2 of that's going through.
Yep. Yep.
And so sometimes that just gets confusing for people. So what I would recommend is if you're having trouble wrapping your head around it, don't let your opponent fast play you in this instance. Just ask them to be like, "Hey, hold on. Can you just slow down? I just need to wrap my head around what just
No, sure.
happened as far as this dice
And
pool goes."
you're not slow playing for asking for that. You're doing the dice correctly, because even if, again, even with a sniper who just does 1 damage and kills 1 guy in a unit, you're still supposed to roll. And you're being, uh, I believe both players have that agreement. Like, well, we'll just get through this as fast as we can, so we can get through the rounds. But no, like time's there to roll the die, right? So
Right.
again, with the sniper, that's one thing. But for all those crazy ones, like, roll the dice, figure it out, take your time. It's fine. Like, if the game hinged on that die roll, you'd be really upset that you didn't try to figure it out correctly. And if it ends up going to time, you don't finish the round. Like, that's just how it is. Like, that's the game, man. Like, you don't not if you're afraid of slow playing and you're afraid of holding up the other guy. When you win a game of Legion, you don't get $1 million, right? It's just a game won. So don't. It's a
Right.
game for fun. Winning is important, but having fun because you are pushing around plastic toys is the main thing. So just play at your speed. If you're getting close to time, keep that in mind. But just do you play the way you want to, figure things out. Don't let people tell you like that, like right, like make sure you see it too. That's my big thing too. It's like someone says three
Right.
hits, be like, well, could you put the dice? Could you roll them where I can see them? Like that's not out of the way. Like do
Yep.
stuff like that. Like that's okay. Like don't ever feel bad for asking for stuff like that.
No, and I would especially in a tournament situation, and everybody seems. Even myself, this is me too. Everybody is just so worried about being perceived as slow playing someone. And I mean, listen, man, most people who are cool will know whether or not you're trying to slow play them. Like if it's a complicated set of circumstances or a complicated move after a deployment or something, most people are going to go, "Yeah, no, dude, I get this. Like this is tough. Take your time." So don't ever feel like you're gonna get accused of slow playing because you're just trying to think through something.
No, I agree. Yep, 100% agree.
Now, there definitely are people who try to slow play, and you're gonna have to be on them, like, if they're just doing ridiculous stuff, you know, don't let them get away with it, but don't hurry yourself because you don't wanna get accused of it. Screw them, like, let them accuse you of it if they really
Yeah,
think that's what's happening, and then
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
call a judge
That's what
over
they're
it,
there for.
you know? Yeah, exactly. Right, and that's the other thing. Don't ever be scared of calling a judge. Like, I mean, that's something I have to get better at too, and I've been working on that, and that's something going into LVO. Like, if there's something that
Judge. Yep.
confuses me or something I don't agree with my opponent, I'm gonna call a judge because the stakes are a little bit higher at LVO. I mean, listen, it's still a game and it's just for fun, but they're a little bit higher, so I'm gonna try to be a little bit more persistent on
So
certain
yeah,
things.
like there's this weird perception in miniature games, especially like all the fantasy flight games, like X-wing and Legion, where calling a judge is perceived as like negative. Like, oh, he's calling a judge over. Like, watch a Magic tournament. They call judge immediately as something like there's not even like a conversation, right? Like, whereas like Legion, I'm like, well, yeah, I guess, yeah, I think that's right. I'm not sure, so we'll do it your way. Like, I hate that stuff. Like, If you're playing casually, sure, whatever. If you're paid to go to Vegas, uh, like call a judge. They're there to do that. They're there to make those choices, to measure, to see if something has line of sight, to confirm a rule. Uh, like if something doesn't sound right to you that the opponent's telling you, call the judge. They'll come over, and if it's just a quick, hey, when I'm clambering over a fence, he says he only rolls one, but I thought you rolled two because it's one for up and down, right? Then you just be like yes or no. Then cool, you're done, right?
Right. Yeah, and I would say most judges at some of these higher end tournaments are gonna be really good and gonna be cool, and, I would say, and you guys can disagree with me, write in and let us know, but one of the other things I would say too is, if you're having a line of sight issue, like, if you feel like you can see a piece of the mini, but your opponent's saying that you can't, get a judge because that's
Sure,
why they're there.
yeah.
They're there to make impartial third-party decisions so that you guys can move on with your game.
I've been getting more into that next wing because a lot of times an arc will be just I don't know, right? Like so razor thin, and like the guy who wants the shot, and the guy who doesn't want to get shot doesn't want to get shot,
Yep.
right? And so it becomes like a well, like, and then the worst parts are when I think I really should be out, but I just say yeah, go for it, and then I lose my ship and I lose the game. I'm like, man, I should have just took that. Like, who cares if we gotta wait a minute, right? That's what time's there for. So never feel bad for calling the judge over for stuff like that.
Yeah, and then, so the next thing I wanna talk about, and, we got, like, 10 minutes here, um, is time management. So this is something that I've been trying to get better at myself, is understanding where the clock is at and kind of perceiving and going, "Okay, we've deployed, let's say we're halfway through round 2, and let's say you are on intercepted transmissions where round 2 and round 4 are scoring rounds, right?
Yep.
Or based on the time that it's taken you to get where you are, how much you've played enough, you can guess how much more time you got left, or, in
Yeah.
activations and stuff. So what I would say is practice your time management and time awareness with the clock, because I would say probably half the games, 3/4 of the games I've been playing lately, scoring we didn't even make it to round 6. Scoring was all within, like, round 3 or 4, maybe
Okay.
5. So,
Yeah.
you're not even gonna make it to the end of the actual scoring round, so you wanna make sure that you've secured your points. And I mean, listen, if you feel like you're in a no-win position with the objectives, maybe you need to try to table your opponent.
Oh, sure.
That's
That's something I need to learn to do
yeah,
more,
that's still a viable option, for a victory.
especially if you're Empire.
Yeah,
Yeah, like sometimes you just can't get it, and you gotta go for it because it comes down to like sometimes there's just one or two units left on the board,
yes.
both of you,
And
and you never know, man. Dice are dice sometimes, right?
yeah, right, and you just gotta watch it, and, pay attention to I think this is an obvious one, but paying attention to their command cards that they've played and understanding what they have left, so that's a big one too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, nothing's worth like not paying attention because you're just tired. This is like your fourth game in a row that they've already used their one pip, and you thought they've been holding it this whole time,
Yeah.
and they throw down like a four pip, and you
Right,
go, "Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, yeah,
whoops."
try, if anything, I would say, before going into a bigger tournament, even your local tournament, try to understand all the command cards that are out there. You don't have to have a full understanding
Yeah,
of them, but just kinda get a gist for them so that when they pop, you're not surprised, and,
yeah. At least understand what each like the big the big whammer card of each captain is,
right.
right? Of each commander.
Yeah, and the only one that's a little tricky is Chewy because of how he works with the 3 units. So, but just keep an eye out,
Yeah,
and, Han's gonna pull some shenanigans on your hand and on your activation. Uh, Palpatine's going
Yeah.
to be able to give his entire army order tokens, and he's going to be able to do the A bomb, but he's also going to do give into your anger. You gotta, and Boba's gonna do whipcord or flamethrower. So there's a lot of stuff you gotta understand and be like, okay, I know he's probably gonna do X this turn, or she is gonna do X this turn. I need to be prepared for that, and how can I best combat that this turn?
No, sure. Yeah, that's I can't tell you the times I just forget Vader's Master of Evil. I'm like, yep, all right,
Yeah,
here we go.
and we actually talked about on the Tories that, like, Dash Mike was talking about how many times he's gotten Vader into a position where he's hit 3 to 5 units with that Master of Evil, and I'm just like, good lord, I don't know that I've ever seen that many units take it, but I mean, this is something you got to be aware of. Like, he's gonna come in, he's gonna suppress you and just control that side of the board. So either kill him before he gets there,
Yep.
or keep your distance until you can make another play.
No, I agree.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, I
That's
don't
very good
know what else
advice.
you got. You got anything else?
Oh, let's see. Not a whole lot. I know there's a couple of local events coming up for us that we got to take a look at.
Yeah. So
Um, have they announced the new play kit or anything? No, they announced how
that's
the new
right.
worlds
Yep.
is going to be, right?
So Worlds is in, I believe it's the 21st and 22nd in Minneapolis, and it's going to be the top 8
Mm-hmm.
from the High Command game at Adepticon. We'll have invites to Worlds. Yeah.
That's cool.
Here's your math for those of you who are playing. The last two maximum firepowers have 64 people. Each one is going to take the top 6. So you got a little less than 10% chance of
Mm-hmm.
winning one of those. Then High Command is 32 people, and they're taking the top 8 to Worlds. So your percentage is, what's that? That's 30. That's 40%, 30%, something like that. I'm not good with the numbers, but yeah, it's a quarter.
Okay.
It's a
That's
quarter of
yeah.
your, so 25%. Duh. It's 25% chance once you make it to the High Command.
Gotcha.
So these are your chances going in. I think they're good if you end up going, if you got into both LVO and Adepticon for the maximum firepowers like I did. You got some good chances. I will say, just from my understanding, the next 2 maximum firepowers are going to have some of the best players that we know of out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think Gen Con, and no offense to the people that won at Gen Con or Nova, but I think it was too early for any of us to really realize what was happening, at those maximum firepower events. So I don't know that the player pool was as strong or had as many people at Nova and Gen Con. You guys can correct me. I know Nova had a number of very good players that I know of. I don't know about Gen Con, but it seems to me like Vegas right now, in my head, I think I had 15 to 20 like top level players are going to be playing at LVO.
Man, that's a lot.
Yeah. So you're solidly going to meet one of them when you play at LVO. And so LVO is 4 regular rounds and then the top 12. So if you end up getting in the top 12, you're playing 5 rounds.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. I will say though, luckily he's got it timed in a way that's really good. So there's like an hour for lunch. So once you get through
Okay.
your first 2 rounds, you'll get an hour of downtime, which is really nice.
Oh,
Uh,
that's not bad
yeah,
then.
that's a good reset. Go grab some food, water, like rest your brain, so on and so forth.
Sure.
And it doesn't seem to go too late. Like, it starts pre-reg is like between 8 and 8:45. I think it starts at 9, and then it's like over by 9 or 10 o'clock at night, supposedly,
Okay.
based on the timing now. So it's not terrible. Um,
No.
it's just, it's going to be a lot. I mean, I know I've done 3 rounds, 4 rounds, and by the 4th round, I'm exhausted. So I can't even imagine what top 12 is gonna be like at LVO.
Yeah, I it's gonna be a murderer's row, right?
Yeah, but I think the positive thing would be is from a mental fatigue state, you're all in the same boat when you get up there. So it'd be interesting to see how the top 12, whomever they end up being in, or will have, like, what kind of mental state they'll be in when they
Yeah,
get there.
that's the some people can be good for 1 or 2 games, but it's the people who can be good for those 5 or 6 games that really are the true MVPs.
Right. Well, and I think they're doing it the strength of schedule too. So it might even get like the more wins you have, right? So when you're into your third and fourth games, you're going to be playing people who have similar wins,
Yeah,
right? So you're going to be a 2-0 going against a 2-0. So it's just going to get increasingly harder until you get to the top 12.
no, agreed.
And I can't remember the exact number, but I believe you can be in the I think 2 people are gonna be able to be in the top 12 with 1 loss.
Okay, that's not
I
bad.
th I think.
So don't one and drop, right?
Correct, yeah.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. Yeah, and especially I know how disheartening it can be to lose your first game, but just wipe it off and move on and just reset for your next game.
Yeah,
You
man,
know, and
it's
especially
called
it's
torpedo mode, right?
right. Yeah, and I mean, and especially like sometimes those games go a little bit faster than what the time's allotted for. Like, you can, when you've lost or whatever. And so if that happens, dude, take a break, check out, go lay down, go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
like clear your head, go do something and come back fresh for the next game.
No, yep, that's X-wing is the problem is like when all your games go to time and so you don't get a break, those are the bad days.
Oh yeah, I've had those days in Legion too. Yeah. But, you just gotta be prepared, and it may make sense again for us to talk. We had this talk, I don't know, a while ago on one of the episodes about how to be prepared for a tournament with, like, water and food and, taking
Mhm.
breaks and the right shoes and stuff. But, maybe we'll bring it up again before LVO. It helps for a reminder for myself too, especially the water thing. I'm always like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have 5 bottles of water," and then I'm like, "I brought 2. What am I doing?" Like,
Hey man, it happens.
so, yeah. But all right, everybody, I think that's gonna close today's episode. I'm trying to think Thursday this week, I think midday Eastern Standard Time, I'm gonna be live streaming a game against War Corgi. He's on the Discord. His name's Mike. He actually does battle reports and stuff for Paint All the Minis. And then next week he's actually gonna be on the podcast. We're gonna have an interview with
Oh,
him.
cool.
So look forward to that. Yeah. And then also, if you haven't had a chance, check out our YouTube channel again. We're doing a lot of live streaming on there now, different games. There's some Keyforge. There's going to be TTS. There's going to be all kinds of stuff on there. So really look at that and see what else we got going. And then the polls are still up for I think it's another 2 weeks. So if you haven't figured out the polls for whether or not you want us to have a merch store or Patreon, and what kind of content you want us to start producing besides these podcasts, let us know on the polls. And we've also started our blog. Right now, the one post we have up is not about Legion. Sorry to all of you that are very specific about what you want to
Got him.
read in here. But it's a good read, and it's something I wrote, and we're going to start blogging different topics, all in the gaming industry. But like, we will have some Legion posts and some game industry posts and other games and stuff like that. So if you don't have enough information in your life, you can always read our blog, and that's at thefifthtrooper.com. And yeah, so that's it, I
Cool.
think. All right. Well, have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. And thank you so much for listening.
Everyone, stay rad.
Join us us next week for another edition of the Fifth Trooper podcast.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.